Okay, طيب. So inshallah we can go ahead and begin. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Now, so طيب, we're beginning. This is maybe like the third class for this section of this course. The first section of the course, the first semester, if you will, was all of that was dealing with al-Aqidah, beliefs, creed of the Islamic creed of beliefs. Okay, so now we're into the second semester of this course, and this is the, like I said, maybe like the third class. The class that we had prior to this, we dealt with issues regarding regarding terminologies. Okay, starting first and foremost with Sharee'ah, this word Sharee'ah, and what is Sharee'ah? What does it mean? What is its definition? How have the scholars of Islam defined this term Sharee'ah? Okay, and what are the categories of ahkam, of laws for the Sharee'ah? Okay, and we said that the Sharee'ah has three types of laws, ahkam. The first are al-ahkam al-i'tiqadiyyah, laws regarding beliefs. That is included within the Sharee'ah. Okay, and the second category we said were al-ahkam al-akhlaqiyyah, laws regarding morals and manners, character. And then the third category the scholars call al-ahkam al-amaliyyah, laws regarding deeds. And this is what they also call al-ahkam al-fiqhiyyah, fiqh laws. Okay, and so fiqh is of this third category of these. If you want to categorize the laws that come from the Sharee'ah, they are of three categories. The third category are those laws that deal with actions. And specifically, this is talking about al-ibadat wal-mu'amalat, acts of worship, ritual acts of worship, and also dealings and transactions. So this class is dealing with fiqh. So then we talked about the Tariq al-Madahib al-Fiqhiyyah, some history of these fiqh madhabs. How did these fiqh schools of law, how did they develop, or these schools of fiqh, how did they develop? We talked about some of the A'immatul Fuqaha, the Imams of A'immatul Fiqh, or the Fuqaha, the Imams of fiqh, the great scholars of the past of Islamic jurisprudence, this science that we're discussing, fiqh. So we dealt with a lot of background information. And then in our last session, we discussed the biography, something of the biography of the author of the book that we're going to be studying or taking our information from, which is Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah feel-Masaa'il al-Fiqhiyyah, the author being Al-Imam Muhammad ibn Alee Ash-Shawkaanee, rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy upon him. Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee wrote this book. So we discussed something of his background, his history, his seerah, if you will, his biography, and his studies and so forth, and his development in its reference to Islamic knowledge and so forth. And so now we're going to go directly into the meat of this course, of this text, of the course, which is this text, Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah feel-Masaa'il al-Fiqhiyyah. Okay, and we're going to start the beginning of the book, as with all books of fiqh you will find if you study any other books of fiqh. And at the end of the class today, we'll discuss something of some other books of fiqh. But we're going to start with Kitab al-Tahara. He begins with Kitab al-Tahara, and Kitab al-Awwal, the first book. In Arabic, when we talk about books, okay, we say kitab for book. But now when you're talking about what's inside of the book and how books are organized, they will call something kitab of such and such, the kitab of this, the kitab of that, kitab of tawheed, the kitab of whatever, the kitab of janaiz or whatever, kitab of asawm, kitab al-hajj, wal-umrah. Okay, so this kitab, when they say this, they're talking about a chapter. Okay, so when he says kitab al-tahara, this is talking about the chapter of al-tahara. Okay, even though kitab literally means book, but we're in the book, so this, when you talk about kitab, once you're in the book, when you say kitab, it's talking about a chapter of that book. And then a subsection would be a bab. Okay, so then he says bab al-Miyaah, the section dealing with types of water, Okay, all right. So another category would be al-fasl. Okay, they say fasl, which this is a subsection. This is a subsection of the section. And then something. Then after that, they would say al-Masaa'il, issues. What matters do we derive from those? So you have kitab, you have bab, you have fasl, and you have Masaa'il. Okay, this is how the books of Islamic knowledge have been organized by the scholars of the past. That's how they organize the sections. Okay, So we're beginning with Al-Kitab al-Awwal, Kitab al-Tahara, okay? The section dealing with water. And Al-Bab al-Awwal, the first bab, the first section of this chapter is Aqsam al-Miyaah, the types of water, okay? So this is here, it's maybe kind of dark still, because I guess because we have lights on, maybe if it was darker, you may be able to see better. But these are the sources that I'm taking the information from. On the left, you have the book At-Ta'liqat al-Zahiyyah Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah feel-Masaa'il al-Fiqhiyyah. This is a summarized explanation of notes for the text of the book by Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee. The compiler of this, the one who made the footnotes in the explanation, is a brother named Sa'aduddin bin Muhammad al-Kubbi, hafidhahullah. And he has a chain for studying this book from his teacher, who was Sheikh Badiyyuddin Shah Sindhi, rahimahullah, was a great scholar of hadith who lived during this era, but he died a couple of decades ago, Sheikh Badiyyuddin, something like, yeah. And but his teachers, he traced his teachers back all the way back to Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee. Okay, so the one who compiled the notes for this one on the left that I'm taking from, Sa'aduddin al-Kubbi, his teacher Sheikh Badiyyuddin Shah had his chain going all the way back to Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee. And the book on the left is Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah, Sharee'ah al-Bahiyyah feel-Masaa'il al-Fiqhiyyah. This is Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah is Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee's explanation of his own book. Okay. And it is in 2 volumes. And this is the text that we used when I was a student in the university in Yemen, at Jami'atul Iman University in Sana'a. This is the textbooks that we had. It was 2 volumes. I have volume 1 with me here now that I will be taking some information from. And this is the course, our course was derived from this. For the first semester, we did volume 1, and the second semester, we finished volume 2. And this was the first year of Sharee'ah studies at Jami'atul Iman. Our teacher, last week we talked about, I gave you all some history or something about the teacher, and we even had a video of him discussing that his teachers, there were only 3 teachers between him and Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee. Okay, so his chain of teachers for this book and for the works of Ash-Shawkaanee, there are only 3 teachers between him and Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee. Meaning he learned this book from his teacher, who learned it from his teacher, who learned it from his teacher, who learned it from Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee. Okay? And so this book, though, on the right, as I said, it is Imam Ash-Shawkaanee's explanation of his own work. The original work is Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah, okay, feel-Masaa'il al-Fiqhiyyah. And then later on, and it's brief text, and that's what we're going to be reading from. But then Imam Ash-Shawkaanee came back later, and he wrote a sharh, an explanation of his own book, okay, and that is Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah, Sharee'ah al-Bahiyyah feel-Masaa'il al-Fiqhiyyah. Okay? And so this is where I'm getting we'll be taking the information from as we go through this work. Yeah, it is kind of dark, I guess because the lights are on so bright here. Maybe if the lights were a little dimmer or something, you would be able to see the text a little bit clearer there. But what you're looking at is actually the beginning, the first part of the book there, the actual text in Arabic. And what I've done is just translated it there. And like I said, the person who was working with us regarding making the copies, she's unable to continue at this time. So what will happen is next week when you all come when we have the class, I will bring you copies of this PowerPoint so you can have on paper, and then also the PowerPoint of the class what we will be continuing with next week. So I don't have the PowerPoints to give you the handout for this week, but it's there. If you want to take notes, you can. But if you come to class next week, I will give you a copy of this PowerPoint of what we're going over today, if you're able to attend next week, inshallah. So Al-Imam Ash-Shawkaanee, he began. He said, Aqsam al-Miyaah, he said, Al-Ma'u tahirun mutahhirun. لا يخرجه عن الوصفين إلا ما غير ريحه أو لونه أو طعمه من النجاسات. So he began by saying that water is tahir, it is pure, it is clean, and it's the nature of water in itself is that it is considered tahir. It is something that is clean, it is ritually pure in Islam, okay? And it is mutahhir. Al-ma'u tahirun mutahhirun. Mutahhir means that it is a cleanser for other things. It will clean other things as well. So it in itself is considered pure Islamically, according to the Islamic law. And it itself is considered, in its origin, it is something that is considered a mutahhir, something that will make tathir, cleansing of other things, okay? And he says, لا يخرجه عن الوصفين إلا ما غير ريحه أو لونه أو طعمه. And he says, nothing removes it from these 2 descriptions, that it is tahir, mutahhir. Nothing takes it away from having these, he says, al-wasfain. Wasf means a description, a characteristic of something. Nothing takes these two characteristics away from water. And he says, except what changes, he says, whatever changes its rih, its odor, or its lawn, its color, or its ta'am, its taste. Min an-Najaasaat, from those things that are considered to be from the impurities. Okay? So, water, think back about this. Water remains as it is, which its two characteristics naturally are that it is clean in itself, it's pure. Meaning if you get water on you, you don't have to wash water off. Water's not going to defile you if it gets on you, it's fine. Okay? And it will cleanse up something else. So if you do have something that is is najis, that is impure, you can use water to get it off of you, to cleanse it, to pure it, to make that, to remove the impurity from whether it is a garment or whether it is on your body or whether it is the spot where you're going to pray. Okay, water can remove those things. He says, except if its odor is changed. Okay. Now, when we say odor, we're talking about the odor of water can be changed by putting something in it. For example, if I put some rose petals or something in the water, it will give the water a nice smell, right? But he says, min an-Najaasaat, from the impurities. Okay? And rose petals are not impure. They're not impure. We're going to talk about the Najaasaat, but just to tell you, to jump ahead a little bit, rose petals are not impure. So that, just because the rose petals change the odor, the rih of the water, that does not make it impure because it is not of the Najaasaat. You get it? If it was of the Najaasaat, the impure things, and it changed the odor, then that water would no longer be considered tahir mutahhir. Okay? It would not be pure itself, and you could not use it to clean something else. Or you could not use it to make wudu, for example, or ghusl. You understand? Or to wash your clothes. All right? Same with color. If the color of the water is changed, but the thing that is changing the color of the water is not min an-Najaasaat, from the impurities, then the water still remains tahir mutahhir, pure in itself and purifying of other substances. Okay? And the last thing, the ta'am, if the taste of the water changes. Okay? If the taste of the water changes. But if its taste is not changed by something that is impure, it still remains tahir mutahhir. But if the thing that changes the taste of the water is something that in itself is an impurity, then the water is no longer tahir and is no longer mutahhir. Okay? Tahir meaning pure in itself, clean in itself, and mutahhir meaning you can use it to clean something else. Is that clear? Do you all understand this? Okay. Now let me make this point. There is a hadith that is related from the Prophet ﷺ, which states that the al-ma' tahir, water is pure, okay? And nothing makes it impure except for what changes its color, its odor, its rih, its lawn, and its ta'am. There's a hadith that says this, but the hadith is not authentic. The hadith is unauthentic. Okay? The hadith was graded weak by a number of scholars of the past, and also Sheikh Muhammad Nasiruddin al-Albani, the scholars of hadith of these times, graded unauthentic. The hadith is weak. Okay? The ending with that addition, with this ziyada, with this addition of the rih, the lawn, and the ta'am, that added wording is not authentic from the Prophet. Okay? And Imam Ash-Shawkaanee talks about this in Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah, but he says, however, according to the ijma' of the ulama, the ijma' of the scholars, a'immatus salaf, these principles, ijma' means the consensus, the unanimous agreement, meaning there's no khilaf, there's no ikhtilaf amongst the scholars about this, the fuqaha of the salaf, okay? That these three qualities, these three characteristics of water, if they are changed by impurity, then that makes the water no longer pure and no longer purifying. Okay? So even though the hadith that supports it cannot be traced back to the Prophet. The beginning of part of the hadith is authentic, but the additional wording, except for what changes its color, its odor, its color, and its taste, that wording added to it is not authentic, has not been found to be authentic. But like I said, the scholars of the past, the Salaf, going back to the Tabi'in, etc., they had a unanimous agreement. There was an ijma'. None of them said different than this. None of them disagreed with this. Okay? So because of the ijma' of the ummah about this, then we still consider it, and it's considered a valid proof, and we accept it. Okay? And we talked about this in the beginning, one of the earlier classes, when we began talking about fiqh. What are the sources? What are our masadir, our sources that we take from, that we consider valid to legitimize things in fiqh or to make laws in fiqh. And of those things is ijma', the ijma'. Okay, all right. So we may not find something in the Quran, we may not find it in the Sunnah of the authentic hadith of the Messenger of Allah, but then we do look to the ijma'. What did the Sahaba agree upon? What did the Imams of Islam of the past, the Salaf, what the scholars of the past? What if they had an ijma' about something? Then we don't. Then it's considered valid or something that we will act according to or make a ruling according to that. Okay. So I hope that is clear to everyone, inshallah. Okay. So that's talking about the impurities. So he says, min al-Najaasaat. And so then he says, وَالثَّانِي, the second thing, ما أخرجه عن اسم الماء المطلق من المغيرات الطاهرة ولا فرق بين قليل وكثير وما فوق القلتين وما دونهما ومتحرك وساكن ومستعمل وغير مستعمل. Okay? So he says, secondly, the second thing that will remove water, when he's saying secondly, he's saying of the things that will remove water from having these wasfain, these two characteristics. The first wasf is that water is tahir, it's pure in itself. The second wasf, al-wasf al-thani, is that it is mutahhir. It can be used to cleanse and purify other things. The first thing we said that will remove it from, that will remove these characteristics from water, such that you cannot use it to cleanse something else, and it is no longer considered pure, is that if its odor or color or taste changes due to an impurity added in it. That's the first thing, al-awwal. So now he's saying, athani, what's the second thing that will remove these purifying characteristics from water? The second thing is, he says, whatever removes it from the customary name of being called water, from those things that would change it that are pure. Okay? So for example, chai. Okay? Some people say chai, depending on what country you're from. Okay, those leaves you put in the water, is it impure? Is it min al-najis, min al-Najaasaat? Chai, is it najis? No, it's not impure. Okay. Does it change the loan of the water, the color of the water? Yes. Does it change the rih, the odor of the water? If it's strong enough, yes. Does it change the ta'am, the taste of the water? Yes. But it's not of the Najaasaat. It's not of the Najaasaat. So my question to you all, can you use tea water to make wudu? I hear no's. Anybody say yes? Has anybody made wudu with tea water? Ghusl with tea? With chai? Okay, so you all are saying no, and you're correct. Now let me ask you why. Because it's no longer called water. It's called chai. It's tea now. Customarily, we don't call it water anymore. We don't call that a cup of water. We say now this is a cup of tea. Okay? You understand what the point he's making? So he's saying, ما أخرجه عن اسم الماء المطلق. Okay? What will take it out of being what is customarily called water? If this thing, it may be of, and he says of the pure things, okay? He says, min al-mughayyirat al-tahira, from those things that will change the water's characteristics that are pure, not min al-najasat, from the pure things, the things that are clean, that are not impurities. But if you add them to the water, and then now the water change, we don't call it water anymore. If I take some lemon powder and put it in the water and sprinkle some sugar in there, that lemon powder and the sugar may be pure. And they change the taste and the color and the odor of the water. But we no longer call it water. We call that lemonade now. Okay? Or Kool-Aid. We call it something. We don't call it water anymore. So you can't make wudu with Kool-Aid. You can't make wudu with Tang. You can't make wudu with lemonade. Okay? You can't make wudu with tea. And it's not because it's impure. It's not because it's impure. It's not najis. But it's not. It's still tahir. But it's not mutahhir. You can't use it to purify yourself anymore with it because it's not water. Okay, so you can't wash yourself ritually with tea or lemonade or Kool-Aid. Okay, you can, but it won't be valid. It's accepted Islamically. You can do it if you want to. You'll be sticky and flies may be buzzing around you, but it won't be valid. You won't be able to perform the ritual acts of Islam, of the acts of worship based upon that purification. Okay. Any questions about that? Is that clear? So he goes on to say. He says, وَلَا فَرْقَ بَيْنَ قَلِيلٍ وَكَثِيرٍ. And there's no difference between whether there's a small amount or whether it is a large amount. Okay? And he says, وَمَا فَوْقَ الْقُلَّتَيْنِ, and whatever is greater than something called a qullah. Two qullas, qullataini. He says, and then he says, وَمَا دُونَهُمَا, and whatever is less than that. And whatever may be less than that. In reference to this, so basically he's saying that the amount of water does not affect it. The amount of water does not affect whether the water is tahir or mutahhir. Okay? Doesn't matter if it's a small amount or a large amount. That does not affect the characteristics, those two basic characteristics of water. He's mentioning this thing, qullataini, because there was some dispute amongst the scholars about whether the water must be, if the water is less than or greater than qullataini. Okay? Qullatayn, if you look in Lisan al-Arab, it says that the most that has been mentioned for this amount is, they said, like 40 buckets of water. 40 buckets of water. It's in the classical Arabic dictionary, Lisan al-Arab. Okay? And it was something that it varied from place to place. In Sham, they said it was something, one thing, and then in Hijaz and Arabia, it had a different amount. You know. But in Lisan al-Arab, it says the most of what was said of it was 40 buckets, arba'un dalwa, 40 buckets of water, approximately. So a qullah would be 20 buckets, all right, if you understand what I'm saying, okay. So, but the reason he's saying is that some said that if it's more than that, if the amount of water is more than this amount, then it doesn't matter, the Najaasaat doesn't change, the adding impurities to it does not affect it. For example, if you add a bunch of sewage water to a lake or what have you, they would say, okay, well, that's more than qullataini, so the water is still fine. You understand? Because they said it's more than qullah. So they say if it's more than qullataini, it doesn't carry najasat. So the scholars differed about this. There's ikhtilaf amongst the scholars of the past about this. But Imam Ash-Shawkaanee is saying this is not true. He said it doesn't matter. Okay, if these things happen to the water and and it's noticeable, then it becomes impure if it's of the najasat, or if it changes the water away from what would be called water. Okay, all right. So he's just mentioning that because there was like I said, a dispute amongst the scholars of the past about that. Okay, and so he also goes on to say, wa mutaharrikin wa sakinin. Also, it makes no difference whether the water is moving, flowing. Okay, mutaharrik means it's flowing, and sakin, which means it is rakid, it's still, water that is just standing water. He said there's no difference between that. There's no difference whether it is mutaharrik or whether it is sakin. And then he went on to also say, he said, wa musta'mil wa ghayr musta'mil. And it makes no difference if the water has been used or whether it is unused. It makes no difference whether the water has been used or unused. Okay? Now, so these are just some points he's making so you can understand what is acceptable and valid for you to use to perform acts of worship, because we're going to get into what is wudu and what is ghusl and how do you make them and so forth, like how do you purify yourself for ritual acts of worship. But before you go into that, you want to talk about what can you use to purify yourself. And so this is why he began talking about Al-Miyaah, the types of water. Any question about any of that? Yes, go ahead. Used, for example, if someone else made wudu from a bucket, that water is still okay to use that water. You don't come behind them and say, well, I can't use that water because someone else used it. Or, and some people had something like, oh, a woman used that, so I can't use it. A woman is, like a woman is impure or something. No, it doesn't matter if it's used or unused. There are plenty of narrations from the Prophet ﷺ of him using containers of water behind Aisha and others of his wives. After they had used it to purify themselves, he used from that same container of water. And that's what he's talking about.
But is it they did that because they had lack of water there back then?
No. That's just considered the hukam regarding it. That water. That's why he's saying it. That's why he's saying this. It doesn't matter. It's not an issue of today and then back then. No. If the water is used, it's still bad. It's okay to use it. It's fine. Okay.
But nowadays we have plenty of water and we have faucet.
Well, if you feel better using, from the faucet instead of using a bucket or a container, or a bowl or something, that's fine. It's no problem. You're not forced to. You're not forced to use water. He's not saying you have to use water. But he's just saying if you have to use it, it's fine. It's permissible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mhm.
Is that?
No, what he's saying, what he's talking about is, let's say you have a container of water, and from that container you're using water to wash yourself.
But
But
you're not reusing that water.
say it again.
You are not reusing that water that went through your body.
You're talking about if you just dump the bucket over yourself, then that's it. There's nothing left in the bucket.
Well, that's what there is a confusion here, because it says that, you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying this, use means that, for example, if I have that bucket, I
Mhm.
use it for, and then I saved it,
Uh-huh.
and then, for example,
You or someone else.
what
Let's.
did I use for ghusl?
Mhm.
And then I use it to wash my clothes.
Mhm.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, if that's fine. But the thing is, if as long as it's not changed, like those, we have to go back to the original things.
He answered my question. What he's saying is, yes, there is plenty of water now, there's faucet and so on. He's just telling us the ruling, regardless of there is abundance of water or not. That's what he's saying.
Also, Musa.
We don't understand the concept here, which was a US we don't use it.
Right.
Even still in the country, in Africa,
Uh-huh.
we have a container, somebody uses water and somebody else
Uh-huh.
uses the same container. We have used it.
Right, I've done this before too. Yeah, when I was in Yemen, I remember having to do this. But yeah, so yeah, he made a point for those who couldn't hear. He's saying also in the United States, we have the society is a bit different where we have an abundance of water. But if you go to some countries where they don't have abundance of water like that, running water, from the city or whatever, they use a container of water like a container, a bowl or a container to make wudu from, and someone else will come along and use that also, what's left of that water and use that also, And that's fine. The point that Imam Ash-Shawkaanee is saying, that's what musta'mil, wa ghayr musta'mil, that's what he's talking about. If someone used the water or didn't use, that makes no difference. That doesn't affect the water. What changes the water are the things that he mentioned already. So keep those principles in mind. Those are principles for you, okay? That if the water, if it's lawn or it's rih or it's ta'am, its color, its fragrance, or its taste are changed by something of najasat, min al-najasat, from the impurities, then that water cannot be used, okay? And then the second thing is if the water, something is added to the water of the pure things that changes it from being called water, what we customarily call water, then that water cannot be used. Other than that, nothing removes it from al-wasfain, the two characteristics that he began mentioning, except for those things. And what are those wasfain, those two characteristics? That water, al-ma' tahirun mutahhir. That water is pure in itself, and it's good, it's fine to use it to purify cleanse other things. Okay? Keep that as the principle. That way you don't have to go get a fatwa or something like this, confuse yourself with all these bouncing around questions, If you keep the principles, go back to the principle. Is the color of the water changed by an impurity? Is the taste of the water changed by an impurity? Is the the fragrance of the water changed by an impurity? If not, then I can use it. Okay. Is the water changed from being called water? Is it now tea or lemonade or juice or Coca-Cola? Then I can't use it. You understand? If you understand, keep those principles in mind, you don't have to get, you don't have to, you won't confuse yourself. That's what I'm trying to say. You won't get yourself confused. Okay. These other things he's just mentioning as side notes, just in case it comes up. But really all of that is refuted by the original principle he laid out. Okay. Nothing changes it from its two wasfain, its two characteristics, except for these two matters. Okay. Does that help make it clear? That way you can, keep it focused, stay with the principle, Okay, so now he goes into An-Najaasaat. So this is the second bab, okay? The second bab is An-Najaasaat. So the Najaasaat are what we call impurities. And these are things that, and I want to make this clear to you all, don't consider impurity just because don't consider something impure just because customarily we think of it as dirty or maybe filthy or we have some disdain for it, okay? Like, for example, if you drop your hot dog at the picnic, the Eid picnic at the park, and it has some dirt crumbs on it from the ground, that doesn't mean you may not want to eat it, but that doesn't mean that dirt is najis. You understand? So just because it's dirt or dust or something like that doesn't mean that's not najasat. Najasat are something specific in the Sharee'ah, that there's text from the Quran and Sunnah to say that this thing is najis. It's impure, meaning if it gets on your clothing, or if it gets on your body, or if it gets on the place that you're going to pray, you must remove it. You must clean it off. You understand? And of course, also, you don't want to eat it either. All right? But you get the point? That's something very technical. That's not just something just because you don't like it, or, oh, I think that's gross. You know, okay, you may think it's gross, but that doesn't mean shar'an, legally in the religion of Islam, that it's min al-Najaasaat, from those impure things that you must remove to be able to perform your ritual acts of worship. Are you all following me? Because this is something that I've seen in the past from some people that I've come across that people, Muslims, from many of them from Muslim countries that were born and raised in Muslim countries, they don't understand this. And something will happen, and then you'll get these reactions like, "Oh, astaghfirullah, you can't bring that in the masjid. Why not?" It was outside on the ground. The ground is not. The ground is pure. It's tahir. It's pure. Why we make tayammum on the thing if it's not? You understand? But they don't understand. They think to them it's just dirty or dislikeful, distasteful, so they think najis. No, najis is something specific. That it has to be a text, a nas from the kitab, from ayat of Allah, or the al-hadith sahih, the authentic hadith of the Prophet. So,
can you give us one or two examples of?
like for example, the issue of praying in shoes. Okay, I've seen people seen me praying in shoes and they thought I was crazy. Like, what are you doing? Astaghfirullah. What do you mean astaghfirullah? Brother, you're praying in shoes. This is haram. I was like, why is it haram? It's dirty, najis. It was outside on the ground. Like, no. The Prophet prayed in shoes. And he commanded it, He commanded to do so. He said, "Sallu fi ni'alikum wa khifafikum." He said, "Wakhalif al-Yahud wal-Mushrikeen." He said, be different from the Jews. Because إِنَّهُمْ لَا يُسَلُّونَ فِي نِعَالِهِمْ وَلَا فِي خِفَافِهِمْ. They don't pray in their shoes, and they don't pray in their khufs, their leather socks, whatever. So he said, pray in them, And as a matter of fact, in one narration in Sahih Muslim, he was praying in his masjid, the Masjid al-Nabawi, in his shoes. And during the prayer, he removed his sandals. And so the Sahaba who were praying behind him, they saw him take his sandals off while he was in the salat, so they took their sandals off. So after the prayer, he asked them, what caused you all to do that? What made you all do that? They said, well, we saw you take your sandals off, so we removed ours. This is in Masjid al-Nabawi. The Prophet said, no, I only removed mine because Jibreel came to me and informed me that there was some Najaasaat on them, some filth. I had stepped in something, maybe outside the masjid, camel dung, anything. But it doesn't say specifically. But he said, and Jibreel informed me, so I removed them. But with you, he said, when you all come to the masjid, check your shoes for any filth. If there's nothing on them, pray in your shoes. Okay, you understand? It doesn't mean, so filth doesn't mean just dirt that's on the ground. That's not, you can pray in shoes. It's from the Sunnah, actually. There have been books even written about it. Prayer in shoes. All right, as-salat fil-Fiqhiyyah wal-Ni'al. Okay, this is from the Sunnah. Okay. Now you may not want to go on the carpet and ruin the carpets at the carpeted masjids now. Like there's a fatwa like this from Lajnat Da'ima in the Mamlaka in Saudi Arabia. The scholars, the muftis there, they have given fatwa that you shouldn't do that because the people, they pay a lot of money to have the nice carpet there and keep it clean for the people. It's not a matter of najis or not. That's not the issue. The issue is that there's a carpet bill that's going to come if you keep just tracking dirt from outside on the carpet, and that makes a burden for the other believers. And and plus also along with the fact that people customarily they're ignorant of the sunnah. They don't know that it's sunnah to pray in the shoes. So it's better to avoid causing this khilaf and fighting and so forth for the masjid. It's better to avoid that, to keep unity. All right, but the people still should be educated that it's the sunnah. But the other issue you run into is like Sheikh bin Baz said, and also like the legend said, that you have the issue of the carpet, keeping the carpet nice for the people, and you don't want to. The carpet will wear out and get dirtier faster from wearing shoes in there. Okay, so not to say it's haram to pray on carpet with shoes, it's not, but still for a maslahah for the community, for the benefit of the people, of everyone else. Don't just think of yourself. Think of Are you going to pay the masjid to have the carpet shampooed all the time? No, most people aren't going to do that. They're just going to say it's the sunnah and force their way in, and then they're not going to pay anything to help keep the carpet clean or won't even pick up the vacuum, So, just to make things easier on the believers, there's a maslahah to not do it. But in general, like if you're outside somewhere, let's say you're going to pray in the Kroger's parking lot or Walmart or whatever, take your shoes off. It's sunnah to pray in the shoes, unless there's that you stepped in some animal feces or something, there's something urine on the shoes or something like that, then take them off. But if you know that you check them, there's nothing on them like that, then you pray on your shoes. You don't take them off, I've even seen pictures like on Facebook and stuff like that people post of, oh, look at these mujahideen and wherever, Afghanistan or whatever, and they're praying in the snow and they have their shoes sitting over on the side and they're standing in snow up to their ankles. It's like, they're putting a hardship on themselves because they don't know the sunnah is to keep your shoes on. You can pray in boots and shoes, Because they don't know the sunnah, they make mashaqqa, make difficulty on themselves, harm themselves. You get frostbite like that, praying in some ice and thettage and stuff like this, So anyway, that's one example. Okay, dirt on your shoes just from the ground is not najis, that's not something that's impure. So anyway, so we're talking about An-Najaasaat. He says, An-Najaasaat here, the impurities are غاية الإنسان مطلقا وبوله إلا ذكر الرضيع. Okay. So he says, the impurities are, firstly, and you can number them. Number one is غاية الإنسان, human feces, مطلقا, of any kind, and human feces in general. Any type of, whether it came from a man, a woman, a child, a boy, or a girl. Human feces is impure. Okay. And he says, وَبَوْلُهُ, which means, and the urine of the human being is considered najis, impure, ritually impure. Okay. He says, إِلَّا ذَكَرَ الرَّضِيعِ, except for the breastfeeding male infant. Except for the breastfeeding male infant. An infant who's at the age where they're a male child, a male infant, who's still at the age where he suckles from his mother, he breastfeeds from his mom. That the urine of that child, a male infant who is still breastfeeding, is not considered najis. Who knows the dalil? Who knows the proof? Anybody know the dalil, the proof for this? There's authentic hadith from the Prophet ﷺ about it, where he mentioned that if a female child, infant, urines on the garment, then it must be washed thoroughly. Just like it would if it was an adult woman, or just like if it was an adult male. But he said if it's a male child, a male child, who's radiya, means he's still breastfeeding, then he said you just sprinkle some water on it and it's fine. Just take some water like this and sprinkle it on it and it's okay. All right. So he didn't command ghusl, washing it. For the female child, just like with adults, you would have to wash it to remove the impurity. But for the male child who's breastfeeding, he said you can just sprinkle water on it and it's fine. So that's not washing. So the scholars took from that, then it must not be of a najasat, or else he would have commanded to wash it off. It would have had to be removed completely. All right. So what is this talking about? It's like if you get it on yourself. Let's say you're holding your niece or nephew or your baby or something like this, or someone in the family. Oh, look at little Ahmed, little Mahmoud, or whatever, and he's breastfeeding little baby and he has his diaper on, but the diaper is leaky, and you hand him back to the aunt or the mother or whoever, and you notice you have some spot of urine that came from little Mahmoud on your thobe. Okay, you can just sprinkle some water on it. It's fine. You don't have to take it off and wash it, because normally it's meaning before you pray. Okay, because you're not supposed to pray. Your prayer is not valid if you pray in something. And remember this. We're going to come to this later, but this is just I'm giving you a heads up because this is why he's talking about these things. Because when you pray, of the conditions of the shurut we say are preconditions for the prayer, things that must be there in place before your prayer will be considered. Your salah is sahihah, is valid, is correct, okay? And of those things that you have to have, that you have taharatul badan, your body has to be clean of any impurity. And taharatul malabis, your garment of thiyab, your clothing must be clean of any impurity. And the place, the makan, the place that you're praying, must be clean of impurity. Those three things. Your body, your clothing that you're wearing, and the place where you're praying must be clean of any najasat. All right? You all understand? So, if little Mahmoud gets his urine on your thobe, that's on your garment, okay? But you don't have to wash it off. Whereas if baby Aisha gets urine on your thobe, it has to be washed before you can pray in it. That's the point, okay? Before your prayer is valid. Okay? Or if your own urine, let's say you may have incontinence, what do you call it? You may have to wear Depends or something. I don't know. I mean, Allah Ta'ala A'lam. I don't know. Allah A'lam. I don't know in reference to the wisdom behind it. He's saying, what's the hikmah? What's the wisdom behind why is it that way for the baby boy as opposed to grown men, grown women, and little girls? Okay, I don't know. Allah Ta'ala A'lam. I don't know. Inshallah, maybe we can ask one of the scholars about this. Matter of fact, there was a telling today with the Grand Mufti Abdulaziz al-Sheikh. I missed it, but inshallah, we can get the question asked if you want to. But I haven't heard anything. And when our teacher was explaining the book, Sheikh Al-Imrani, no one asked him and he didn't mention it, and I haven't heard anything about it, the hikmah behind why is it, Allah knows best. But if you want to find out, we can ask one of them, Sharee'ah, inshallah. So those are the first things, all right? The the feces of the human and the urine of the human, with the only exception being that of an infant child, male child who's breastfeeding. And going on, he says, وَلُعَابْ كَلْبٍ وَالرَّوْثٌ وَدَمُ حَيْدٍ وَلَحْمُ خَنْزِيرٍ. Okay? So he says the saliva of the dog, the saliva of a dog, is considered impure. Who knows the dalil for it? Anybody know the evidence? What's the evidence that the saliva of a dog is min al-Najaasaat, lu'ab al-kalb? Who said? Somebody said something? The nose? No, when I say what's the dalil, I mean what's the proof? What's the evidence? What's the proof that the saliva of a dog is impure? Yes, this hadith is in Sahih Muslim. Yes, yes. So he gave that's the main evidence that's used. That the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that if a dog licks out of a container, that it must be washed 7 times. In one narration, he had in the 8th time with last wash with dirt. All right. So this is proof it must be washed. So for the Prophet to command that it must be washed before you can use it, that's saying that it's impure. If he's commanding that it must be washed before you can, that means it's min al-Najaasaat. It's from the impurities. Okay. All right. So the saliva of the dog is impure. Now, some people, they'll say, "Oh, a dog rubbed up against my leg. I can't pray in these pants." No, the dog didn't lick you. You know, it's the saliva of the dog, not just the dog's fur on his back, or his tail or his ear or something like. Patting a dog on the head doesn't mean that you have to go take a ghusl. All right. Some people are extreme like this, but that's not what the hadith is talking. The hadith said the dog licks in the container. He's talking from the saliva of the dog. Okay. Not just the dog's paw, is impure. Okay, you understand? You all understand? All right. And so let me ask you this. So he's saying that lu'ab kalb, the saliva of a dog is impure. So if a dog licks your hand, all right, a dog licks your hand, you're at the family reunion, the picnic or what have you, and the dog comes up and you reach out to pet it and it licks your hand, big nasty tongue, all right? And then they call the iqamah for salat. What do you have to do? Or do you have to do anything? Okay, so by show of hands. Okay, hands. Who wants to answer the question? And we can take more than one answer. I want to hear what everybody has to say. Okay, tafaddali, Ahmed. Go ahead. Okay. You said wash your hands and make wudu. Any other answers? You think you have to wash your hands 7 times? Okay.
If
Wudu 7 times too? You'll miss the salat and the next one too.
if the licking does not have saliva,
Well, we're going to assume the dog's tongue had saliva on it. We'll assume that,
then you have to wow, I agree with that.
She says wash and make wudu. She said just wash her hand. What do you say?
Repeat wudu.
You think we people do? Musa. Just wash it. Yeah. Another answer? Wash your hand. Yeah. The correct answer is you have to wash your hand. You just have to remove the najis. There's nothing about iyadatul wudu or that the saliva of the dog breaks the wudu, min nawaqid al-wudu. Okay. When we'll get to that, we're going to get to a section in the book on nawaqid al-wudu, those things that break wudu. And of them, but I'm going to tell you now, of them is not the saliva of the dog does not break wudu. Breaking wudu is like passing gas or using the restroom, not getting the dog saliva on you. There's nothing from the Sharee'ah of the Prophet commanding that the dog's saliva breaks wudu. What we're saying here, these things are impure and they must be washed off before you can pray. But it doesn't mean you have to make wudu again. It doesn't break your wudu. It's just you have to remove them before you can pray. You understand? You all get it? So you just wash your hand. If you already had wudu, you just wash your hand. If you didn't have wudu, then you have to make wudu. Because maybe the dog licked your hand and you didn't have wudu anyway, aslan, so you still have to make wudu before you can pray. But if you already had made wudu before and the dog happened to lick your hand, you don't repeat your wudu. That didn't break your wudu. You just have to wash the najis off of your hand. Wash the saliva off your hand. No. Okay, so the next thing.
It's completely different customarily the way we were brought up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can believe it. I understand.
Culturally, we were told that the lick of a dog is najis,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to go and
make wudu. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm not not saying, I'm not defending it.
Right, I understand. I understand it. I've heard it. I've heard it before too. Yeah, I know.
Jazakallah khair for
I mean-
enlightening us.
I mean, with Jazak, no.
But, now we know.
No. And as you see, knowledge of the removing the ignorance makes you see the easiness of Islam. Islam is easy, Islam is din somehow. It's easy,
Not only that,
Yes.
they told us what
Ma yuridu Allahu bikum
7 times. Yes.
Allah doesn't want difficulty for you. He wants yusr, ease for you. So when you have knowledge of the Sunnah, you understand. Then you see things are easier, than following culture and tradition,
So what is,
taqalid al-nas or whatever. That's extra
Where
burden.
does this thing about 7 times came from?
This is an authentic hadith, but it's from the container, washing, because it's not making wudu or anything like that. There's nothing in it, the hadith about making wudu over it. That's just saying clean the container. And that's just a proof to show that it's of the Najaasaat. But the point I want to make clear to you all is there's a difference between a Najaasaat and nawaqid al-wudu. They're not the same things. They're two separate categories of things. Things that break wudu and things that are considered impure substances that you just have to wash off. They're two separate categories. Okay. Right now we're just discussing the Najaasaat. Later on in the book we're going to get to what are nawaqid al-wudu, and you will see they're not the same things. All right. So the next is he says the roth, which is the dung, animal feces, dung. We say dung in English, the animal waste. Okay. Wadamu hayd, the blood, menstrual blood from menstruation is considered impure. Okay, and all of these things that he's just giving the metin here. This is the text, but for every one of these things, you see these footnotes there. There's a hadith to support all of these things. The Prophet saying that these things must be washed. Okay, there are things. The things he's mentioning now, those things, and I'm going to say right now, the things he's mentioning now, those things that there's ijma' on. There's unanimous agreement. No scholars of the madahib of the fuqaha differ about these things. Okay, being min an-najasat. And there are evidences for all, there are hadiths for all of them to support them, that the Prophet saying those things must be washed. Also, lahmu khanzir. Lahmu khanzir is the pig meat. Pig meat is considered najis, impure. Okay, and then he says, وَفِيمَا عَدَى ذَلِكَ خِلَافٌ. And everything besides that, anything besides these things that he just mentioned, that some may consider impure, then the scholars differ about those things. Okay. The scholars differ about those things. Because there are other things, like for example, some scholars said that alcohol, khamr, is min an-najasat, of the impurities. Okay? But there's not an authentic hadith. There's not an authentic hadith that proves that alcohol is min an-najasat, of the impurities, that if you get it on, you have to wash it off. But the scholars, there's khilaf about this. I mean, he's saying there's ikhtilaf. The scholars didn't have a consensus about that. Some of them, they believed it was. They're, acting upon, hadith that were unauthentic, But others, they said no, because there's no authentic hadith to prove that it is. So until there's something that comes to prove that it is, it's considered pure. Unless you have a dalil that's authentic from the Prophet saying that it must be washed off, okay? That's authentic from the Prophet, okay? So that's why he's saying there's khilaf about that. But these things that we've mentioned prior to this, the human feces, the urine of the human being, except for the male breastfeeding child, the saliva of the dog, the animal dung, menstrual blood, pig meat, those things, nobody differed about those things. None of the scholars of the past, there was ijma' about those things, okay? That there are min an-najasat, impurities, all right? Okay, and so he goes on to say, well, asl. The asl means the basic principle is at-tahara, is that regarding any object or substance, that it is pure, okay? So nothing removes it. فَلَا يَنْقُلُ عَنْهَا إِلَّا نَاقِلٌ صَحِيحٌ لَمْ يُعَارِضْهُ مَا يُسَاوِيهِ أَوْ يُقَدَّمْ عَلَيْهِ. Okay? So he says that, so the basic principle is that any object or substance, that it is considered tahir, is considered pure. And nothing removes it from that state, the state of being pure, except something meaning when he says something, he's talking about an evidence. When he says a naqil, he's talking about there must be an evidence, okay? That is authentic. He says that is sahih, that is authentic. And it is not contradicted by an equal evidence or what is given precedence over it, okay? So what he's talking about here is, maybe there are some things, I'm not saying maybe, well, I'll go ahead and just say, there are some things, sometimes we'll come across an evidence. Maybe, let's say, for example, someone of the Sahaba held an opinion about something. That, let's say that it's impure, okay? But we may find something, a text from the Prophet ﷺ that contradicts that. Or an ayah of the Quran that is given precedence. So an ayah of the Quran, or authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, This is يقدم على أقوال الصحابة. Okay, this is giving precedence over the statements and opinions of ashab al-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, over the individual opinions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they were human beings. They made a mistake about it. Okay, so but something the only thing that we do not argue against, or that there's no room to differ with, is قال الله وقال رسوله. Okay, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if the Sahaba agreed about something, إذا أجمع الصحابة رضي الله عنهم على شيء أو على أمر فلا يجوز لأحد أن يخالفهم في ذلك أن يعارضهم فيه. So if the companions of Muhammad unanimously agreed about something, they had ijma' about something, that this is what the deen means, or this is what this ayat means, or this is what the Prophet meant by this, and they didn't differ about it, they understood that, then it's not permissible for anyone after them to come and oppose them about that matter. Okay. But now individually amongst the companions, that individually they may have had opinions about things that they amongst themselves they didn't agree about some things. The Sahaba didn't agree about everything. There are things within the religion that they didn't agree about. Okay. But so if they differ about something, okay, so they have their own individual opinions about something. And if we find something that that will give one precedence over the other, okay, I'll give you an example. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, if anyone tells you that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he stood in urine, then he is lying, because I never saw him standing in urine, passing urine. Al-bawl, yabul, qa'im. Okay. But Hudhayfa ibn al-Yaman radiallahu anhu, he said, I was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on such and such a ghazwa, on such and such expedition, and I saw him standing, passing urine. Okay. So in that, we give precedence to the statement of Hudhayfa because he saw something that Aisha did not see. So Aisha swore by Allah about something, but she could only swear by Allah about what she saw in her house with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She wasn't with him always, okay? You understand? So now if it's just me against Aisha, of course, then I'll have to go with Aisha. Aisha's, she's the wife of the Prophet, so he's telling my mother of the believers. My opinion means nothing, and neither does yours against Aisha. But Hudhayfa's does, Hudhayfa ibn Yaman, because he's a Sahabi also, so his statement has equal weight with hers, and on top of it, he's saying, I saw it. Witnessed this with my eye, and we don't consider him a liar. May Allah forbid that we consider, claim that Hudhayfa lied on the Prophet, okay? So his precedence and his statement in that, based upon the situation, would be given precedence over the statement of Aisha, because she only narrated what she saw, and he narrated something that he saw that's this ziyada. We say ziyada to thiqah, the added information of a reliable person that other first person didn't have. All right. So these are different things that the scholars will look at when they weigh these things out. Okay. So maybe something is yuqaddam ala mumkin shay yuqaddam ala shay'in akhar. Something is given precedence over something else. Okay. Or something of equal status, he says, ma yusawihi, something that is equal to it, that will contradict it, okay? All right? So, this is what he's talking about. So, but other than that, so the basic principle, though, going back to the asl, he says that asl is at-tahara, which he's saying that in regards to clothing, substances, objects, etc., everything is considered pure. Everything is considered pure, unless there's something, a text and evidence to remove it from being pure. Which means there's an ayah in the Quran that says it's impure, or a statement from the Prophet saying it's impure, or the Sahaba unanimously agree that this thing is najis min an-Najaasaat. Okay? All right, you get it? You all understand? Other than that, it's tahir. It's upon its asl. Okay? It's upon its origin, basis, which means it is pure, until there's an evidence to prove that it's impure. All right? Well, so that's the end. We can start, alhamdulillah. And I think I heard them calling the adhan anyway, so we're right on time. We're looking good with time. So these are just, some people asked me regarding some books in English, because this book, Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah, or Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah feel-Masaa'il il-Fiqhiyyah, I have not seen it printed in English or translated into English. So what you're seeing here is just me translating it as we go along on the slides, okay? But some helpful fiqh books that are available in English for the English readers, who do not have access to Arabic or can't read Arabic, what have you. These are some books that are available that are good books that will be helpful to you, that have been translated into the English language in understanding fiqh. The one on the top left is a summary of Islamic jurisprudence. In Arabic, this book is called Al-Mulakhas al-Fiqhi. It's by Sheikh Dr. Salih bin Fawzan bin Abdullah al-Fawzan. He's Adu Hayt al-Kibar ulama. He's a member of the Committee of Senior Scholars in Saudi Arabia, and also Adu Lajnat al-Da'imah lil-Ifta wal-Irshad. He's a member, a mufti, a member of the senior muftis also. Muftis mean those people qualified to give religious verdicts in Saudi Arabia. Alhamdulillah, he was also one of my teachers that I was able to sit and benefit with him in his lessons and learn from him when I was living in Riyadh. Salih Fawzan, Dr. Salih Fawzan. That book, it's in 2 volumes printed by Dar es-Salaam. They translated it into English. 2 volumes, Fiqh Manual. It's a summary of Islamic jurisprudence. On the right, you have another book, Fiqh According to the Quran and the Sunnah. This is by Muhammad Subhi Hassan Hallaq. Hafidhullah. He's a scholar of hadith, alhamdulillah. Matter of fact, he did the footnotes and the checking of hadith for my copy of Ad-Durar ul-Bahiyyah that I have here in my hand. Muhammad Subhi Hassan Hallaq, the same person. Well, he compiled a book that's in 2 volumes that Dar es Salaam prints called Fiqh According to the Quran and Sunnah, where you can find a lot of the same information. Okay, and then there's also this book Fiqh Sunnah, which is available in English in 5 volumes. I see now they put it maybe in 1 volume here, where these, but it's by Sayyid Sabiq, rahimahullah. He's deceased. May Allah have mercy upon him. An Egyptian scholar, Egyptian fiqh scholar. He compiled this book. And the first, in Arabic, it's 3 volumes. I have it at home in Arabic. It's 3 volumes. But that first volume in Arabic came out to be 5 volumes in English. Okay, and they're available. It's been the first, but though the second volume 2 and volume 3, as far as I know, have not of the Arabic has not been translated into English, as far as I know. But this first volume is, and it has a lot of these things we're talking about as far as purification and tahara, and we're going to talk about salat and these things like this. Okay, so just some giving you some other sources you can use that will be helpful as we go through this material if you want to, if you have the money and the wherewithal and the financial ability to do some purchasing. Because I have not been able to find an English copy of this book we're going through. So this is just some supplementary information you can use to kind of help you. So inshallah, we'll stop with that. If there are no questions, we can get ready for the salah. I think we're supposed to be praying soon. Inshallah. I mean, subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.